Hello and welcome back to the When You're Podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching John Wick, Chapter 3, Parabellum, or Parabellum. Parabellum? Anyways, it's John Wick, the third one, and the events of this movie do pick up right after John Wick 2. And that's what I like about that's what I like about this movie a lot is that like there's no you could just pick up after John Wick 2 and then get straight into 3. You know what I mean? Like back to back, whereas in John Wick it was kind of like a I don't know, it was kind of like a the movie ended and then it kind of felt like the studio or whoever was in charge was like, you know what, let's do a second one and let's just like add some more, stuff to it. Or maybe they always had an idea for a sequel, but I don't know. It just felt like John Wick 2 was like it was sort of a continuation of the story, but it wasn't like an immediate pickup afterwards, if that makes sense. But that's what I like about this third one is it's an immediate pickup after the second one. So just to recap on the last one, if you haven't watched it, and spoilers for this movie, all right? I don't know how many times I can say this. Spoilers for every movie I talk about or review on this podcast. I don't know what else to say. But anyways, last time he was excommunicado. And that means the whole city will assassinate him, will hunt him down eventually. But the way that it works like this is that he has, I don't know how long he has. I think it's like a few hours. I think he has like an hour or 2 hours. I don't remember how many hours. But essentially he's running in New York City and he's trying to find anything to help him out, help his case. And so he's kind of going around the city from place to place and he's finding more of those gold coins because he can't just run back to his, because he doesn't have enough time, right? That's the thing is that he's in a panic and he has to get those gold coins, but he can't go back to his house because at his house, it's burnt down and it's buried under a bunch of concrete. So he'd have to run back all the way back to his apartment, break the thing, and then get that stuff out. And then he'd have to run away from his house. He's left out in the open, staying in the city and trying to find like little pieces that he can for whatever it is that he needs. So he goes to, he has like some time left and he has like he goes to the library. He goes to a library in New York. I forget which library it is. I think it's like one of the famous ones, but he goes in there and he has to check out a book or whatever. And inside the book are the coins, like a cross, and some other stuff. So while he's there at the library, somebody decides to get the jump on him before his execution is to be, timed, right? So he has like, let's say he has like 30 minutes left, right? Before he's like officially... his assassination is on the go, right? It's just like a timer. He has a timer on him. This guy decides to get the jump early on John Wick. It is like, I don't really care, and who's really going to know anyways, right? Like what difference does it really make? So he does what anybody does, and he goes straight for John Wick, tries to kill him there in the library, and John Wick, he kills him. Obviously, he survives. He makes it through. He lives to see another day. He breathes a few more minutes. And in that time, essentially, he's kind of like... And there was nobody else in this library. Like, it was just them two. Like, that's crazy, you know what I mean? I think it would have been funny if they had to, like, kind of avoid some people. But then again, they would just fight each other. They wouldn't really care about the citizens, right? They would just run away and they would fight it out. But anyways, he kills him. He escapes, but he doesn't get away unscathed, okay? This guy does stab him with a knife. And John Wick is like, who do I go to? Who can I ask for in this time of need? I'm on an execution list. I will, people want to murder me. Who could care for me in this time? And he goes to like this doctor. And he's been there before. I think in the second movie he went there for like he got shot. Oh no, yes. So what happened was he fought somebody, I think in the second movie. Was it the second movie or was it the first movie? I think it was the second movie. Definitely the second movie. So he has his like protective suit, right? That's like bulletproof, but somebody got in real close and shot him, right? And that's how he started bleeding. And then he had to fight all of those people. He had to fight the big sumo wrestler guy. He had to fight this other person. So I think that was after he got out of like the subway or something. I don't know, but no, it was before the subway. Anyways, he goes to the doctor, and the doctor is like, I can't do it, John Wick. I can't help you. You know, they'll kill me just for helping you. And John Wick will be like, no, just please. I still have time. I need you to patch me up. I need you to help me. So the doctor's like, okay, fine. The doctor helps him. Dude, this doctor's a good guy, man. This doctor's the best. Really good dude. So he stitches him up, right? He helps him as much as he can. And then John Wick kind of finishes the job because he ran out of time. And then John Wick is like, he's in pain, you know, he's going to have to fight people. And the doctor tells him like, okay, I can't help you anymore, but there's a gun and there's pills up there. And he still helps him, even though he's not supposed to, and they could kill him. So what does the doctor do? He has to make it seem like John Wick forced it out of him, or like he tried to kill him, or, you know, he miraculously survived. So he tells John Wick that he has to shoot him, and John Wick places the bullet perfectly where he tells him to. And then the doctor's like, that's still not enough. After he gets shot one time, he's like, that's still not enough. You may need to do it one more time right up here. And then John Wick shoots him. And the doctor's like, okay, you can go now. Thank you. Good work. And that doctor's the best, man. He took 2 bullets for John Wick. 2 of them. So anyways, John Wick, we kind of learn a little bit more about his background, his history. So after that, it's an escape to this theater. He's trying to run away to this theater, right? That's the plan, essentially. But he's being hunted at the same time. So he's going to go on a killing spree. And he's going to have to kill some people who are like after him early, you know, because that's probably... It's basic strategy, right? Get him early while he's wounded. Get him while he's still fresh and easy to get. Because if you wait for the time to pass, you know, the chances of him staying in one spot are very low, and the chances of you like getting another opportunity are also very low. So your strength in numbers, but it's John Wick, so they have no chance. And after he kills those people, he makes it to the theater, and then in the theater he asks for help, a transport. Safe passage, and he goes to essentially like to the people who raised him, the people who trained him to be this killer of John Wick, and they have to like brand him, and they have to. It's like a whole long process, and I can't really explain it all that well. So essentially, they give him like it's an agreement between the two of them that is outside of the execution, and because they have that bond, that pact, he has to help them. But soon we'll see that like that's not the best choice for the person helping them. So anyways, we kind of see like how he was raised, and like the people in that kind of institution are forced to be essentially killers at a young age. They're taught to fight, they're taught to dance, they're taught to be perfection and to like suffer, you know what I mean? So in order to get good things, I guess. And they all have the same back tattoos that he has. So it's kind of like a understanding of like, I mean, it's just a little history, kind of like a look into how he lived his life. And those are potential future John Wicks. So you never know. But anyways, he's asking for the transport because he needs to meet a friend who's going to introduce him to their friend, and then maybe they can get the execution off of John Wick, right? Because he's excommunicado. And who's his friend? Who does he take? Who does he go to? I mean, dude, he goes to Halle. I always forget. Is it he goes to Halle Berry. He goes to Halle Berry, and dude, she is fantastic in this movie. I didn't even know she was in this movie, but when I saw her, dude, I was just like, yo, that's awesome. And she has these 2 dogs. two cool dogs. I mean, very well trained, and they do a lot of crazy stunts in the movie. So he meets Halle Berry, and essentially she's kind of like, I hate you, John Wick. I can't be with my daughter. I can't know where she is. I can't be with her because if I did, people would try to kill her. And you know how in the second movie he made that blood pact? He made the what's it called? Darn it, I forget what it's called. He had the marker. She has a marker with him, so whatever he asks of her, she has to do. So, yeah, it's kind of like, it kind of sucks, but it is what it is, right? So they get to the spot, right? They get to the place, and it's there that Halle Berry introduces John Wick to the person that's going to get him to the higher ups above the high table, so that way they can call off the execution. And by calling off the execution, he's essentially free and he's let go of the burden. But in the mix of it all, Halle Berry's dogs kind of get put up for auction. Not really auction. It's really just like he gave John Wick the key, or kind of like the idea of like how to find the person above the high table. And because of that information, he needs something back, right? He just gave you something. You need to reciprocate, give him something back. And he wants one of Halle Berry's dogs. And because she doesn't want to give up her dogs, he does what any psychopath does, and he shoots the dog, right? I don't think the dog dies, because there are two dogs later on in the fight that ensues afterwards, but he shoots the dog. And I thought the dog dies. I don't know if she has like a third dog or whatnot, but Halle Berry then just starts to go like crazy, and that's when she decides to just kill everyone. So her and John Wick are now killing everybody because they shot her dog. And honestly, I agree with her. You know, that's her dog, right? Like, I mean, it just is what it is. And John Wick has done the same for his dog. So let's not even go there. But anyways, I mean, the action sequences were nuts in this movie. The killing was absolutely amazing. The coordination with the dogs was actually really, really good. I mean, the level of training those dogs have had. I mean, I don't know how many dogs they used. I mean, if they only used 2 dogs, that's amazing. I would imagine they would have to use like multiple of the same dogs, and especially because the fight scene, the killing takes place at night. So it's not like they couldn't use different dogs. It's just like, I don't know. So they kill their way out of there, and after they escape, Halle Berry takes them to the desert. And it's there in the desert that he's supposed to walk around whatever, and if they want to speak with him or see him, they'll pick him up or they'll see and speak to him. So he's out there with little to no food, no water. So Halle Berry takes like she drinks almost like a whole bottle of water in front of John Wick, takes a final gulp, takes a final like mouthful, swishes it all around in her mouth, and then spits it back into the bottle and gives it back to John Wick. Now, that's a beautiful gift. That's pretty kind that she did that. You know, at least she gave him something to work with. Is it gross? No, it's survival. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't care if she spat it out. But, you know, I don't know what it is. But anyways, he's in the desert. And I never thought I'd see John Wick in like a desert shot. In like a suit. You know, it must have been hot for Keanu. Keanu Reeves must have been burning alive at that desert. But that, or it's all smoke and mirrors and they just like put sand in like a studio and they made a fake sun. Anyways, he meets up with the guy. So he collapses and then he's picked up and he meets up with the one who is above the high table, the one who can give him his out, per se. And what he requests is he can call it off, but John Wick has to go back to killing people. He has to be back in the life. And there is no escape from that. He has to live in that life. Now, I'm of the opinion that John Wick shouldn't have taken it, and that, you know, but he has no choice, essentially, right? I mean, what choice does he really have? And it's not like he's not already killing people. It's not like he's already not back in the business. So it sucks, but it happens. So as dedication to his new role, he has to cut off his finger, and he cuts off his wedding finger, including his wedding ring. So he gives it to the guy, and he's now back in the life, and the execution is off, so he's not going to be killed. But he is back in the life. He's back in the life, and I just his whole talk about freedom. It's just so complicated because it's the cycle of violence that will never end for John Wick, right? As long as he keeps on living this way, as long as he keeps on doing whatever it is that he wants, he's never going to break it. He's as long as he keeps on going back down deep into it, you know what I mean? Because he keeps on choosing to kill people. He chose to kill the guy in the second movie. He didn't have to. He could have just waited it out and just did it at another time, right? But he did it, and he should have died, all right? But they left him alive. So because of that, it's just this ongoing cycle of he's never going to get out. Now he's in the life for life. This is going to be his life for forever. He has no choice. He can't back out of it now, and he gave up his finger. Like, dang, dude. It's terrible. And it was his wedding finger. I mean, it's not like he was really doing much with it, but like, come on. It's just a little sad, I guess. So, there is, there are a bunch of bad guys. I mean, there are a lot of assassins trying to kill him, but they're not necessarily the bad guys. The bad guy of this movie is a woman known as the Adjourner. Adjourner. So, essentially, her role is kind of like a detective, or like she's the person who, you know how like in court, maybe you get like served with papers by like a civil servant or something? Or like they'll come up to you and they'll hand you a piece of paper or whatnot, right? So they'll be like, you've been served, and they hand you papers or whatever. Maybe it's like a police officer or something. She comes by and she leads an investigation of figuring out John Wick, because he did murder somebody of the high table, and they're just trying to get to the bottom of it. So her whole role is to figure out piece by piece by piece everybody who has ever helped him, in association with, who has ever given him any kind of stuff like that. So, and to declare judgment upon them. So she first goes to the hotel, and there she meets the guy, the manager, and she's like, you had the chance to kill John Wick, but you didn't. You chose to make him excommunicado. Why? And he was like, because I can, and I wanted to. And she goes like, all right, well, because you can and you wanted to, and nobody's above the high table, you're going to have to give up your hotel, and you're no longer going to be manager. And then after that, we're probably going to kill you. So you give up your power, and that is what it is. And the guy's like, I'm not doing that. And she's like, okay, we'll see. She walks away. And then she goes to Lawrence Fishburne, who helped John Wick get into the what was it, the party, or like that hotel with the mirrors and stuff. He helped him getting into there. So because of that, she knows about the gun that he gave John Wick, and she goes, you gave him a gun with 7 bullets. Your penance will be 7 slashes. And somebody cuts him with the sword, and and he's dead. Like, they slash him up good. And he's just like, ha 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 ha, that's not happening. I'm the king. He kind of does that whole spiel. But, and then after that, she meets up with the lady, or like the people who helped him get to Halle Berry. So everybody who's ever been in association with him just essentially is gonna get killed. And she's not alone in this, all right? She's not doing this all by herself. She's not necessarily fighting. She's just kind of like telling them the rules, or like what's gonna happen. So what does that mean? Well, it means that she has some hired help. And by hired help, I mean trained Japanese killers, like real ninjas, like some crazy acrobatic, like top of the line killers, like nonstop. They could just take down an entire country. These guys are so good. So And we see that when they go into the theater. We see how many of those people they kill. And it's nonstop action. And so because of that, they are all after John Wick, essentially. So now it's kind of like everybody's against John Wick. Everybody's like failing because of John Wick. Like there are consequences to all of this. Big consequences. That's kind of like the big theme of this movie is the consequences of the last movie of him seeking help, him seeking vengeance, him trying to like just do right, good, do what he thinks is right, but like it's not always the right thing. He does make some bad choices. So these are the consequences of his actions, essentially. So with that, John Wick goes back to the hotel. He goes back to the hotel, and that's where they make their final stand. So he goes there with the manager, with the desk clerk, who's played by Lance Reddick, and that's where the final fight essentially takes place. It's the Japanese hired people versus John Wick and everybody else in the building and in the hotel. And it's kind of like a fight against the adjourner, against the high table, because they're no longer in practice anymore. The hotel is like, the rule that the hotel, like assassins can't kill each other in the hotel? Yeah, all of that is gone. Like people can do whatever they want because the hotel is no longer guarded by those rules by the high table because they broke the rules of the high table. So now all of that goes away. So that means they can fight in the hotel, which is cool. So it's essentially a big fight. And you see kind of John Wick go back and forth between getting different guns because one kind of gun won't pierce their armor, and because it doesn't pierce their armor, they have to be very careful in how they kill people. So they can't aim for the body. They have to go for headshots, and because they have helmets, they have to like go for the neck essentially and go for other parts of the body that might not be able to might not be as protected. So during the hotel fight, there's like this guy who's like trying to be like John Wick or trying to tell John Wick that like you and I are the same. We're both awesome killers. We're both like two warriors. And John Wick is like, we're not the same. And I know it. The whole audience know. Like I knew they weren't the same. I knew John Wick was going to live. I knew John Wick was going to fight and kill anybody who gets in his way. But they try to make it seem like those two are like two halves of the same coin, but they're not. John Wick is obviously a lot better. But there was a fight that John Wick was fighting these two guys, and they kind of like gave him multiple chances. Now, the way they get around that is like they're not supposed to be the ones that kill John Wick. The main guy is the one that's going to kill John Wick, if that makes sense. So those two are just supposed to beat him up. And if John Wick is John Wick, he'll beat those two. And after he beats those two, he'll, the final guy will kill John Wick, right? Like, that's kind of like the way it works. So, but it was just weird to see them, like, fight John Wick, have him in a killing position. They're about to kill him, but then they just let him get up and, like, they keep the fight going. I just found that very weird. But, hey, it is what it is. So, after that, they fight a few times, and it takes a few chances. It takes John Wick a couple of tries to really get it going. You know what I mean? So because it takes a couple of tries, he eventually gets better and better and better, and he beats the two guys that were beating on him, but he doesn't kill them. There's like a sign of respect, right? So he beats them both, but they're not dead. He hasn't killed them because he's like, respect to you guys, because you guys are excellent fighters. You guys are the real deal. I'm not going to kill you. You could have killed me and you didn't, so it's kind of like this respect thing, I guess, even though I think he should have killed them, but I like the respect. So those two are down. They're like tired. They're knocked out, right? So he goes to the final guy, and they do a final fight, but that's not what's important. What's important is that John Wick kills him, and it's over. The fight is essentially over. And the adjourner comes in and it goes like, that was only the first wave. You guys prepared for more? And the manager and the desk clerk and John Wick are kind of like, just give, the manager's like, just give me back my hotel, give me back my power. And she was like, all of that was just to show your strength to me. And to the high table. And she was like, I respect it. All right, fine, you can have your hotel back. And then she's like, but what do we do about John Wick? All right, we can't let him live. We can't just like call that off. And so the manager shoots John Wick. So after all John Wick has done for that guy, he protected him, he saved his hotel, he just double crosses him and he shoots him off the building. He shoots him off the building, and John Wick is essentially, he falls back onto the street from like this tall, from the height of the hotel, and he falls backwards, and it makes it seem like he's gonna die. He's on the brink of death. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is like the manager has his hotel back, but he had to get rid of John Wick, and the adjourner thinks that John Wick is dead, but when she goes down to the alley to pick up his body, he's not there. So she's like, where's John Wick? I saw you shoot him, but he's not on the street anymore. Where did he go? And he's like, and the manager's like, I have no idea where he went, but he couldn't have gone far. I mean, John Wick, I shot him. You saw me. And so she was kind of like, what the hell? So she was kind of like, darn it, a loose end, right? And then we get to the final moment of the movie, and we see Lawrence Fishburne all cut up and bloody and like messed up. He's not at 100% right now. And because of that, guess what? John Wick looks up at him, and he's kind of like, dang it, those guys double-crossed me. They discarded me like trash just so that they can have their power back after all that I've done for them. And Lawrence Fishburne is like, doesn't it sting? Doesn't it sting to have your back, have them turn their back on you? Do you want to get them back? And John Wick is like, yes. And that's where the movie ends. So, I mean, crazy movie, and the nonstop, it just never stops with John Wick. It's always the next thing, the next person to kill, the next objective, the next mission. It's nuts. So now it's Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu Reeves back at it against the world. I mean, what a great combo. But I seriously have no idea how they're gonna fight, how they're gonna continue to keep on doing this. But one thing's for sure, the adjourner has to die. Another thing is that I guess they essentially had to take down the hotel. They got to stop they got to get back the hotel manager and the desk clerk, because he goes with it. Lance Reddick has to go. So, in the movie, his character in the movie, not in real life. So, well, whatever. Anyways, that's where this movie ends, and there is a fourth one, so I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see how that, how they continue this, where it picks up from. But overall, when you're watching John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, you just have to think to yourself, right? If I was in John Wick's shoes, and you feel like the whole world is coming at you, right? It's nonstop. Who can you really turn to? Who can you actually trust? And what are you willing to die for and fight for, and what matters most? Because to me, John Wick really doesn't have anything to lose, and he doesn't really have anything to gain either. Like, what is he really gaining? Like, his freedom? His freedom was taken from him. So it's kind of difficult to figure out, like, John Wick, his search for freedom, but what does that even look like? We never get to see him happy. We never get to see him enjoy life. We never get to see him enjoy his dog. We never get to see him really do a lot of things. So it's kind of hard for me to be like, get out of there, be free of the life, when it's like he kind of constantly goes back to it. So when you're watching it, just kind of think for yourself and be like, if I was in his shoes, what would I fight for? What would I die for? What's something that, even if it doesn't really keep the story interesting, where would I draw the line, you know? So that's just me. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys liked this episode. Thank you guys so much for subscribing to the YouTube channel. I appreciate it a lot. And I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.